For 3 decades, people all over the world have been inspired by 10 simple phrases quoted in speeches, books, and newspapers. Messages like, "The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow, do good anyway," have been attributed to various sources, most often to anonymous. But now the original author has come forward in his new book, Anyway, The Paradoxical Commandments. Kent Keith offers a guideline for people searching to create a life with meaning. Hello, Kent Keith. How are you?
Good morning. It's good to be here.
This is such an interesting story. 34 years ago, as a student at Harvard, 19 years old,
right,
you wrote these 10 paradoxical commandments, right? What motivated you to write them in the first place?
You know, the 60s were a real challenging time. I mean, it was a turbulent time, a lot of hope and idealism, a lot of passion, a lot of conflict and confrontation. And I really wanted to encourage student leaders in those days to just go out and do what they thought was right and good and true, and really love people and care about them and stay with it, and not worry about whether they got rewarded or appreciated or achieved change overnight. Basically, if they found the meaning, they didn't have to have the glory.
But it wasn't sort of do unto others. It was paradoxical. In other words, it was, you know, they're commandments with a bit of a wink, don't you think?
That's right. I mean, it's about, you know, giving the world your best, even though the world may be doing its worst to you. I mean, things may not work, you may not be successful in the way you hope, but you still need to do what's right and good and true.
Over the last several decades, Ken, as I mentioned, people have quoted you ad nauseum. I mean, people from world leaders in Zimbabwe to ministers or clergymen in Milwaukee to Mother Teresa. I mean, it's just been unbelievable. How did all your commandments get out to the rest of the world?
Well, actually, they were in the first book that I wrote for student leaders back in 1968, just on one page, and people liked them, and they started sharing them, and they started traveling. And the funny thing is, I didn't know. I was just going on about my life, and I didn't know that they were traveling all over and being attributed to all kinds of people.
Finally, you heard someone at a Rotary meeting in Honolulu, right?
That's right. I was
quote you and actually give Mother Teresa credit.
That's right. And that really changed my life, because when I found out that it was on the wall of her children's home in Calcutta, that's when I decided to write a book about them.
You said, hey, I wrote that, and so you decided to come forward. Well, let's run through a few of your commandments. The first one, people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. Seems simple enough, but it's hard at times, isn't it? Well,
it is. It's hard. For example, if there's somebody in your office or your family that's really difficult and you'd rather kind of write them off and not be engaged with them, it's hard to listen, to learn, and to get to know them well enough that you really can work together. But, you know, as I say in the book, you don't limit your life by limiting your love. You also, the 7th commandment, people favor underdogs but follow only top dogs, fight for a few underdogs anyway. You know, it's hard because the underdog's an underdog because that person doesn't have a lot of support, and when you support that person, you're putting yourself at risk to some extent, and yet a lot of good new ideas and things that need to be done in life start with an underdog. The 10th commandment, give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. That's almost a summary. That's almost the final challenge. And the reason you do it is because that's who you are. I mean, you need to do what's right and good and true because that's where the personal meaning is. And that's really what the book is about. It's a guide to finding personal meaning in a crazy world. I like, if you're successful, you will win. False friends and true enemies succeed anyway. But it's funny, that happens. You achieve a position of prominence in your field or profession, and suddenly you got friends you didn't have before, and suddenly you got enemies you didn't have before, and you just need to stay close to your real personal friends and be as compassionate and patient with everybody else as you can. So what ultimately, Kent Keith, do you hope that people will take from this book? I think, you know, times are tough. There's a lot of stress and confusion in the world, and I think people know that there's got to be more than that. They're looking, they're yearning for meaning. And what I hope they'll find in this book is guideposts that'll help them find personal meaning, because I think that's a real key to being deeply happy, whether you call it self-actualization or self-fulfillment or being centered or finding God's will for your life. I think personal meaning is a key. And your 9th commandment, people really need help but may attack you if you do help them, help people anyway. That's right. So despite the odds and despite what people think, do the right thing is basically the bottom line. Because that will give you the meaning that you need to be deeply happy. All right, Kent Keith, thanks so much for coming by, and best of luck with the book. If you'd like to read an excerpt from Anyway, The Paradoxical Commandments, you can log on to our website at today.msnbc.com.